This is Nathaniel back with coding-bootcamps.com. In the last video, we talked about the most basic example of an aggregation, which is a simple count function available on a collection. In this video, we're going to get into a little more depth around the functionality that MongoDB provides for aggregations, because the thing is, when you're doing a simple count of collections, there's a very simple method for you to specify that you want to count all the records or documents in a collection. But now I'm going to show you a different syntax that we're going to use for the remainder of this aggregation section. So I've switched back into our text editor, and we have a new file called aggregations.js. Pretty similarly to the other JavaScript we've written at this point, we are declaring our database, we're declaring our collection, and we're deleting any records that might exist just to avoid confusion. And then we're going to define 3 new employees this time. We have our same John Smith, we have our same Jane Bradley, and we have a new employee, Fred Jones. And you'll also notice that we've defined a new field for each of them called salary. So in this example, what we want to do is we want to sum everyone's salary together. This might actually be a really practical real-world thing you would want to do to figure out your payroll. You could query your data and figure out what your monthly or yearly rather expenses are in the payroll department. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert all of our employees, 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to print a message to ourselves to say summing all employee salaries. Now here's where things get a little tricky, and you might need to pause the video along the way just to reference the documentation and make sense of this syntax. We have our database, and we're saying dot our collection name, my collection, as we've always done. And now we have a new command called aggregate. Now, aggregate is an array because there are many different aggregations that you can run as part of the same pipeline. We refer to this whole object here, this whole array, as a pipeline. And the reason it's an array is because you have pieces of the pipeline that come one after another. So you can think of it just like a straight line, where if we define another thing right here, we would have a second object in our array, and so that would become the second piece of the pipeline. So right now we just have one piece of our pipeline. It's a pipeline with one object in it, this thing. So what we're doing is we're specifying that we want to group our data by ID, and we want to construct a new field that does a sum operation on the field salary. This field up here, salary. So the syntax might be a little confusing. I encourage you to look at the documentation. One thing to note is that you do need this group operator. Now, we're not actually going to group by anything. All we want to do is get the salary of all of the employees. That's why this is blank. Really, the only thing we're looking at here is this. The rest is just syntax we need to get the aggregation working. So only focus on this part. We want to say, we want a result that tells us in JSON a field total with the sum of all the salaries. So let's just do that, and then we'll expand on this a little bit more. So if we go back to our terminal, we'll run aggregations.js, and we'll see we have our message summing all employee salaries, and we have our total, 178,000. ID is blank. We're not grouping by anything. Now, if we wanted to change this slightly, we could add a grouping here. You'll notice that employee 3 belongs to the accounting department, while the other two belong to the IT department. If we want to group on a specific field, we can get different aggregation results for those fields. So by leaving this blank, we're telling Mongo, we don't really care. We don't want to group by anyone. We just want the total salary on everyone in the collection. But if we put department here, for example, and saved our file, return to our command line, and run the program again, we'll see that we have an ID of department. And excuse me, I've actually made a mistake here, so I'm going to backtrack. Let's delete this. Okay, so we are just summing salary at this point. We actually want to put the name of the department. We want to actually put a $sign prepended to the name of the field, rather. There we go. I apologize for that. So now we see that we have our total being listed again, but this time it is grouped by the different departments. So we see that accounting 63,000 and IT 115,000. And just to clarify, since I made a little mistake there, these fields have to have a $sign prepended to them. So our department field, we've prepended with a $sign. Our salary field, we've prepended with a $sign. We are saying sum all of the salaries of all of the documents that belong to a particular department. Awesome. I know this one is a little more involved, so I definitely encourage you to look at the documentation, take some time with it. Don't get overwhelmed by all the syntax, and we'll continue to expand on the different types of things we can do from this aggregation pipeline. I will see you in the next video.